Hello, dear listener. How are you? This is Hugh, and I just thought I'd take you through how I made this song and why I made this song, and its individual parts, and break it down and what these sounds are and why these sounds are. So to get started with this song, I initially made this as a jam that I did on my Eurorack system, and I made it for the Japan Gigs video that I did last year that seemed to do pretty well on YouTube. I'm not going to lie, 14,000 views. I think that's the most attention anyone's paid to anything I've ever done, really, so that's kind of cool. But this jam I really liked, and I thought I could turn it into a fully fleshed out song. And it sounds a little something like this. So I would have jammed this out more than a year ago, and to be honest, no real recollection of how I made these sounds. If I had to guess, the main sort of loop that sounds like that blurry sort of backwardsy thing, I would assume that maybe it's something I sequenced on one of my little Korg SQ1s, maybe from the sampler, and then recorded it into the little loop station thing that I have, and reversed it and then slowed it down by half time. That's my guess. However, I don't know. The bass sound, or we'll put in inverted commas as the bass. To me, I'm pretty sure I used the same sound source to come up with those two sounds. Just the bass is just pitch shift way down on the sampler, and it sounds nice and crusty. But I didn't save the disc, so I guess I just don't have that sound, whatever it was that made those two loops, or that loop and that bass line. I tried to recreate it and I couldn't, which is kind of a shame. The drums in that original jam are sort of those, drum box, 1960s, 70s electronic organ sort of drum accompaniment type sounds, and I really love those. And when going to recreate it, I tried to use the original drum sounds, but I decided to do something a little bit more complex and interesting. Another interesting problem that arose was, that main loop. It's 4/4, but it's definitely not 4. So it's not something that loops perfectly on a 4-bar loop. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to where the 1 in that was, and I settled on 14 16th notes, and it would just repeat on that at the end of that 14th note. So it would slip in and out of sync, or in and out of time at least, but in a tasteful way. So that's kind of nice. Also, another problem is I only had a clean recording of half or 2/3 of that loop or something like that, so that was the real problem. So when you hear it in the new composition, it's actually got a lot of splices and chops in it to make it work properly, and I guess all the drums and every other element sort of masks the clicks and the pops and that kind of thing. Another thing to note is the bass line is just this loop pitch shifted down. Doesn't sound too good by itself, does it? I've also pitch shifted this main loop up 1 octave and also 2 octaves, and sort of brought them in when there needs to be an extra bit of sort of energy and movement sort of kicking in, and they sound like this. I've also changed the start and end points for these loops as well, so it's slightly different, and there's a bit of warping and stuff going on there. Almost sounds like a chorus of seagulls. Alright, well, let's move on to the drums then, shall we? There's lots of stuff going on there. I guess I'll start by talking about the process. Lately, I've been getting into more so playing the samples and triggering them and such, as opposed to sequencing them, just because I don't know, I guess it's more fun. And I've moved it off the computer and onto this lovely piece of hardware called the Akai SO1, which is a really bare bones sampler from the early 90s slash late 80s. And basically, to come up with these sounds, I've been recording drum sounds from my interface into there, and then just pitch shifting them down and up, and just seeing what kind of, like, just tinkering around and just seeing what works sonically with the actual rest of the track, as opposed to maybe going through my drum library and stuff like that. Maybe taking my time a little bit more and going, that kick's nice. What if I pitch shifted down maybe another 2 semitones or something like that? And maybe, maybe shorten it a bit or something like that. And I did that for all the drum sounds. But to actually get these drum sounds, I was kind of looking on Bandcamp at sample packs, because I'm insecure. I've been doing this for most of my life, and I'm still not happy with the drum sounds that I have. So yeah, so I was looking at this guy called VU Beats. He's a guy that makes sample packs, and he's from Poland. He's really cool, but he's got some really good stuff that's been processed with old samplers like SP12s and MPC 60s and Akai S900s and all that kind of stuff. And instead of buying it like a nice person, I just recorded it from my interface into the sampler, and basically just played them with the sample trigger buttons on the front of it. The hi-hats, they're not even remotely on grid. None of this stuff actually is on grid. It's all just sloppy and moving around a whole bunch. Here's the main kick drum sound and a hat, which is basically standing in for a snare that I actually just kind of liked, so I kept. Also, another problem in this track is there's a bunch of signal bleed, and you can hear it all over the drum sounds. And I just, for whatever reason, I just didn't go back and fix it. And I don't think it's too much of a problem. Bloody hell, how wonky and out of time do those hats sound? So for this track, I decided that I didn't really want a snare in there. And yes, there is sounds which take up the role of the snare in this song. But they're actually hi-hat sounds pitch shifted down and combined with other kind of weird percussive noises. But more importantly, they're just not actual snare drums. And those are the sounds that back up that pitch shifted hi-hat and basically make it take up the role of a snare drum. The only actual sound that I could identify in this soup is a percussive sound from this wonky drum machine called a Rotors, which is just a nightmare to use. But you get some cool and unique sounds out of it, and it's just really awesome. If I had to guess, some of those other sounds are pitch-shifted hi-hats, but I've changed the start point on the sampler, so it's not with the transients being cut off. Yeah, and also another sound in the mix is basically this slices of this breakbeat, but they've been time stretched, so it's like really high-pitched. Another percussive element in this track is what I've just called crush drums, which is basically the main loop at double time, but with a bit crusher over it and a few effects. And basically that's been layered with a re-recording of that with the bit crusher on it, and then that's been time stretched as well, and it's got some flanges and phases and that kind of thing on it, so it sort of adds this kind of real, like, almost like stomach acid sort of kind of sound to it, which is kind of nice. Lastly, we'll get into the main lead sound, which is sort of a nice brass sound. I'm pretty sure it's a saxophone, but maybe it could be a trumpet. I'm pretty sure the sound actually came from a sound pack on Bandcamp that I was just randomly stumbled onto, or it came from somewhere in my sample library, potentially. But I honestly can't identify the source. Either way, I didn't label it, and I recorded the sound into my sampler and just played it back. Chromatically on the keys, like you would, and I just played to me what sounded right. And at certain points in the song, it gets very echoey. That's because I was processing it with my Echo Dream 2 pedal, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the voice of God. It's this very musical analog delay pedal with a lot of tweakability to it. Well, maybe not a large amount of tweakability, and I was just playing it and mucking around with the time and feedback knobs as playing it, and just pick the best takes, because sometimes it gets out of it gets out of hand a little bit, as analog delay does. And this is not a one take thing. I would have gone through each note at least 3 or 4 times and picked the best one, which sounded like the best delay to take, I guess you'd say. Yeah, so it was actually a bit more intensive than just playing it. But I kind of like the results of sort of just noodling about and getting it just right. And that just about covers it. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Really appreciate your attention. I'm going to chuck the stems from this up on Bandcamp. The linky poo is in the description. One last thing before I get out of your hair, though. If you're like me and you're the sort of person that just kind of noodles around with music on their afternoons when they have the time and motivation is the key thing. I'm not suggesting any sort of like stupid hustle grind set bullcrap or whatever, but if you have like a giant folder of Ableton projects, of unfinished things, of 8-bar loops that haven't turned into a full composition, and they just pile up over the years, or even over the months, I just suggest going through them with a critical ear, and instead of going, oh yeah, I guess this is okay, just have a spreadsheet open and categorize them. Is this dope? Is this good? Is this, no, I guess this is okay, this is crap, and start categorizing them. And then maybe in the dope and good category, select those and go, okay, well, what are the 5 best, or what are the 3 best? What's the 1 best even? And then just sit down and just kind of work hard and actually just finish something. That is my advice. And to everyone else who says otherwise, I guess whatever works for them works for them. But there's a lot of people out there that want you to do this hustle culture bullcrap. I just say, finish a song. Just one song, just for you. Do it. Come on. For its own value.